Welcome everyone to today's Momentum Developer Webinar Series, Session 2, DocuSign Monitor API. My name is Melissa Marsh, Developer Marketing Program Specialist at DocuSign, and I'll be your moderator today. We have our API team on the call today as well. I'd like to introduce Abhi Salvi and Vinayak Rao, who will be our presenters today, covering an introduction and quick overview of Monitor API. Brian Yeckley, our Splunk Integration Demo Q&A wizard, will answer questions throughout the webinar. Before we get started, I have a couple of housekeeping items. First, please excuse any background noise you might hear as we are all working remotely from home during this COVID-19 period. Also, this webinar is being recorded, which we'll share with you along with the presentation following the webinar. All attendees have been placed in listen-only mode. So if you have questions, please submit them through the Q&A function located at the bottom of your screen. Simply type the question into the field and then click send. Your questions may be answered by text via Q&A box or verbally during the Q&A session later. Once the demo is complete, we will hold a broader open mic Q&A session. Simply raise your hand using the raise hand button to be unmuted. You might be prompted to unmute yourself here as well. Lastly, you should see a quick poll on your screen in just a moment. If you can answer those questions, that will help us understand where you are in your development journey and enable us to tailor the content for this in future webinars. That's it for housekeeping. I'm going to hand it over to Abhi now to get us started.
Hey, thanks, Melissa. So we'll start with the safe harbor statement. As you go through the polls, just pay attention to the safe harbor statement. It is to indicate that all and any top ideas that you hear from me and the team are forward-looking statements that are indicative of the future direction of our products and services at DocuSign. The product vision, roadmap, and feature set that we share with you today are subject to change. Hence, we recommend that you base all your purchasing decisions on existing product features that are available to you. Now, with that covered, we wanted to get into the cool, exciting new product, DocuSign Monitor, that we want to share with you. Now, this is something that most of you would be familiar with. It takes on an average 191 days to identify a data breach once it has happened in a customer's environment. Can you imagine 191 days? That's almost more than 6 months. And that's just one security study that was conducted. Gartner reported that these are among the fortunate ones. Almost 92% of organizations don't even realize that a security breach, a data breach, has happened in their environment. We are very proud that DocuSign follows the industry standards when it comes to following the operational processes around our own infrastructure. And we are very secure in terms of hosting some of the very confidential information content like agreements, contracts for you. But all these agreements and contracts can be only as secure as your own credential management and your own operational integrity. We want to make sure that you have the right tools, you have the right mechanisms to know if an outsider is targeting your own system, to stop an authorized insider, a disgruntled employee from sabotaging your own data or your own applications, to know if an hacker has got access to any of your compromised credentials and is gaining access to some of your confidential content and data because of that. And this is not just a requirement from a select set of customers. Many enterprises have reached out to us to express the need for these powerful insights and tools that will help them protect the integrity of their system of agreement. And that is where DocuSign Monitor comes into play. It's a new product that DocuSign has just taken to beta. We released DocuSign Monitor as a beta at a Momentum in March, just a few weeks back. What DocuSign Monitor offers to customers is using advanced analytics, we provide round-the-clock e-signature activity monitoring. We are able to detect even threats from external outside users as well as internal employees. Using pre-programmed alerts, we are able to track and monitor behavioral patterns, user activities, and these alerts are automatically triggered based on the underlying algorithms. These alerts are essentially categorized into 3 main buckets, and these buckets are associated with the 3 main types of events that we are monitoring using this particular product. The first bucket is for any user or account level changes. If we security policies, as in, are some of the key things that are necessary in order to make sure that your DocuSign agreements and contracts are kept secure and people are not able to get unauthorized access to it. If one of these security policies, like a recipient authentication policy, is disabled, it will possibly open up you to unauthorized access and or data loss. We want to make sure that you are aware if the security policy is actually changed. And if that happens, you are able to contact an admin to verify if an activity was intentional and warranted, or if it was unwarranted, how we can quickly plug that hole and secure your agreements and contracts. The second category is if we notice any login or access abnormalities. And this is where if a user fails 6 or more consecutive login attempts, it could potentially indicate a hacker who is trying to gain access to your agreement cloud. There again, because of the alert, you would be able to force the logout for that particular user account, reset their password, or follow up with that corresponding user to make sure that they are not facing any difficulties logging in, and it is not somebody else who is trying to imitate them to gain access to the DocuSign environment. Then lastly, we are dealing with data exfiltration. This is where if a user deletes 5 or more envelopes in an hour, that could potentially point to somebody who is a disgruntled employee and who is trying to sabotage the data, and it could result in possible data loss or unauthorized access. There again, you can step in because you're getting that alert to undelete the envelopes to prevent a data loss and make sure that the users who are basically deleting all of these envelopes, their permissions are restricted. You can inactivate their user account. We also have 40+ events that we are enabling. These are again along those same categories. Many of these events are useful for making sure that you are able to detect the threats, you are able to get that operational insights into what your users are doing around the clock, and you're able to identify if there are any anomalies, any suspicious behavior that you need to take mitigation action on. These APIs are again open and flexible, so they allow you to easily integrate with your existing security information and event monitoring systems like Splunk, Sumo Logic, IBM SIEM. You can also connect it with other data visualization tools like Tableau, Power BI, and using that you get a holistic, comprehensive view into your user activities, into your account activities. And you will see a lot of that capability already exists, and we will show that to you as part of the demo that we'll cover in the next few minutes. We've already launched a DocuSign Monitor as a beta. We have an ongoing beta program, and we have been interacting with a number of customers through that beta program, and we've been getting pretty positive feedback from these customers. So these are just a few quotes. As you see, customers are really anticipating that this would give them that greater visibility, that greater transparency that that will ensure that they are on top of all the user activities, all the user behaviors. They can identify any anomalous behaviors, any suspicious activity around the clock, and take action on those suspicious activities in near real time. And these are customers in the FinServ space, in the healthcare space. These are customers in the insurance space. Almost every vertical of customers that are using DocuSign, they have found need in terms of information that we are presenting, in terms of the events and alerts that we're presenting through DocuSign Monitor. Another point that we want to highlight is through DocuSign Monitor, we are joining a unique lead of cloud vendors. Only a select set of cloud vendors like Salesforce, Microsoft, Box have something similar. But at the same time, it helps us create a unique differentiator against our competitors. None of our competitors have anything remotely close to what we have to offer through DocuSign Monitor. So with that, I'll actually show you the demo of the DocuSign Monitor UI itself. That way you can relate to it. You are able to see that it's not vaporware, it's actually a working product. So I'm going to log into my demo environment. And what we have to offer through the DocuSign Monitor UI is...
Abhi, hey, this is Brian. I don't think you're sharing the window for your UI right now. So no problem.
Okay.
Cool. Got it.
Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Okay. So when you log into your DocuSign environment, you just navigate to the admin tab. And you switch to the DocuSign admin, or the DocuSign org admin as it was known previously. When you get to that, the admin landing page, you will see the monitor tile. So if DocuSign Monitor is enabled in your environment, you would get this tile. When you click on it, you get to the DocuSign Monitor landing page, and you get to see all the alerts that we have talked about. So the 3 pre-programmed alerts that are already available in beta, these are what you would see. As we develop more alerts, as we develop more events, you would see those also being added here, right? But right now in beta we have 3, and this is what you would see. You would be able to see how these alerts have been trending over the last 7 days, the last 30 days. And in addition to how seeing how they're trending, you can actually look into the details. So for example, if I see that, oh, you know what, there were 10 alerts fired on April 30th, I can drill down into that and see what exactly happened there. So I'll get to the details about, okay, oh, this alert was triggered for this particular user at this particular time, and I can therefore follow up with those users, inactivate their user account, or reset their password, or restrict the permissions for them so that they don't have permissions to delete envelopes if I see that there is something suspicious, something fishy going on. So again, this is the basic version of the DocuSign Monitor UI. We have much richer functionality that we are building, that we hope to include as part of the GA release. And we'll share more and more of that through our ongoing beta program. So if you want to know more about what's coming, do register for the beta program, and more details of that will be in the subsequent slides. We do understand that some customers would want to enable only alerts that are relevant to them. So for example, recipient authentication. Not all customers use recipient authentication. So you would be able to disable that alert if it's not relevant to you. And when you go to the dashboard, that alert would essentially get disabled. If at a later point you have to re-enable it, you can go and just click this button and it'll automatically get re-enabled for you. So again, it's very easy to use and something that, of course, we do realize is a minimum viable product right now, but we'll keep enhancing it and bringing more and more capabilities to it. So with that, we will move on to the slides. Any questions up till this point? Brian, do we have any Q&A?
We just one we were able to answer it. So
okay.
You're okay. Carry on.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cool. So again, we want to keep this interactive. As you go through the slides, as you go through the presentations, feel free to ask any questions. We're happy to answer them as we go along. So with that, I'll hand it over to Vinayak. Vinayak, I'll share my screen and do let me know when you're ready, and that way we can get started.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be speaking with you today. I'm going to give you a better idea of how the architecture for DocuSign Monitor works and what we look like underneath the covers a little bit to give you an idea of what's happening. So I'll be a few minutes next slide. Yeah. So if you look here, this is what the DocuSign world looks like. Within us, we have our UI and APIs. We have our own internal processes and some real-time alerting as well. Internally, we keep track of all of that information, and we are then providing that information to you via the DocuSign Monitor API. So in that API, you will be given various information about the things that Abhi just showed you in terms of what's going on with your organization, what is going on with your accounts, collated in a way that you can download that information via REST, or as Brian is going to show you in a short moment, how you can integrate with Splunk or another application of your choice to sort of display that information in a way that's relevant to your organization. Abhi, next slide, please. We do provide a very straightforward sample application that simply shows you how to connect to the API and how that information can then be presented on a console in this case for the purposes of just being able to say, this is how you connect to our API, this is what you can do with it, and give you an example of how to actually integrate. We'll also provide the Splunk API as well that we're going to show you shortly. But this gives you an idea of how you might choose to do what you want with that information. Next slide. We do provide an SLA for certain things. So your events will have an SLA of 30 minutes. It will usually be faster. There's a certain amount of time it takes, obviously, to collect that information, put it in DB, and provide it to you for your availability. It's usually about 5 minutes, but the SLA is 30 minutes for events. So you should be receiving that information via the API. We will also provide a 4.9 uptime. So you will have that availability. We promise to you that you will have 4 nines throughout the year so that you can be sure that you will have that information when things do go wrong. If you have any questions, obviously put them in the Q&A. Brian's doing an excellent job answering them. And with that, I'll turn over to Brian to show you how this might be used in your organization with Splunk and sort of provide that information in a manner that your organization can consume that information.
All right, thanks, Mike. If you could, I can share my screen here. If you could stop sharing, I'll take over. Thank you. Okay. Yep, my name's Brian. As mentioned, I'm an engineer on the DocuSign Monitor team, and I'd like to walk you through our example Splunk integration that we have right now. Someone asked if you could integrate with Azure as well. Currently, we just provide the Splunk one out of the box. in beta, but you should be able to follow the pattern that I've done here and do it with something like Azure. And I'll show you the code towards the end, and that'll be publicly available as well. But here we go. As Avi mentioned, we are focused on getting you the data that you need to be aware of breaches and malicious activities as our current priority. And a tool like Splunk helps you visualize this very easily. And we can directly integrate with Splunk and just pull in this data live as it's flowing in from your DocuSign organization. One nice thing is we are able to see the current location of all the events so that you're able to see where activity is happening live in your DocuSign accounts. This helps in case you don't expect to see activity in certain places, and you're able to drill down and then look into what's going on. For our demo purposes, we just have Seattle and San Francisco because that's where our demo instance is live. But you're able to see if I click on this, I will get an overview of all of the events that have happened in this area to whatever my filter is, whatever the current date range is. So these are all the Seattle events. It's very, very useful. And then we also, you're able to instrument any of the 40 plus events that we give you. You're able to just, in Splunk, you can create any dashboards you want. We have some out of the box ones here you're able to just to quickly visualize. Some of the more useful ones, hopefully based on our current alerting. Like for example, we were able to see login failures, envelopes deleted, things like that. And we can quickly see, notice things like spikes. Like, oh, all of a sudden at 4 a.m. we got 12 login failures. So we can come in here, we can see, okay, good, there was 2 users, not 1. And we're able to see exactly what they were doing. So if I click on this, I can come in here and I will see this user. Okay, they had several login fail, and then here we automatically lock them out. That's good, we're doing what we should do. And then on top of that, as Avi mentioned, we have 3 out-of-the-box alerts that we are sending to you that we process and then push out. In this case, we triggered the too many login failures. So you would get an alert event that you'd be able to like tap into and quickly be notified. So an example of that right here is you can just come in here and say object equals alert, and you can just see all the alerts that are pushed out to you. One thing I like to do is save this as like a Splunk alert. So they're kind of in sync here. So I can come in and then see, oh, look, we've triggered, all these alerts have triggered in the last 24 hours. Just, you can get SMS, email notification, all that through Splunk's mechanisms. Similarly, we visualize ways that let you see like data exiting your system. Like you don't want to see spikes in envelopes deleted or a certain user all of a sudden downloading envelopes. It's suspicious. So like this user just quickly downloaded 5 envelopes. And we also do offer events based on users being created in your systems. So for example, an org administrator being created. That's maybe alarming if you're not expecting any more to be signed up, or org administrators being deleted. These are all things you can now visualize directly here. And it's really easy to make alerts based on whatever specific things you might be looking for. For example, if users are turning off 2-factor authentication, this would be a simple Splunk query that you could then save as an alert, and you'll be notified whenever a user disables 2FA. So very useful. And we have this available for you right away in beta. And I can quickly walk through how you would go about installing that. So here's the user guide that we'll send out to anyone who's interested in the sign up. And it provides a direct link to the code for this app. At a future date, it will be an app actually in the Splunk App Store, but for now, we're just providing it as a standalone install. But it's very simple to set up. All you would do is copy it to your Splunk directory. And then after copying it in there, you'll be able to navigate into Splunk and go to your data inputs. And you'll be able to scroll down and see a new input called DocuSign Monitor. And from there, it is as simple as just adding a new one. And let me get back here. And then once you add a new one, you'll be asked for some information that this guide will have walked you through on how to set up. And it's just a few points you need. You just need to give it a name, your organization ID, and then your integration key that you've configured from earlier in this guide, including the RSA key. It's useful to set this up to poll so that it just keeps refreshing data. Recommend any value greater than 60 is acceptable. Recommended 360. I think I'm using like 2 minutes for this, but it's not important as long as you're polling. And then once you do that, you can just get a quick overview of all the data that's coming in. Source equals DS monitor. Oh, sorry, I should get the right line. We have some examples here, so you'll want to. You can just search for here, and you'll see in the last 24 hours we have not. Oh, because in mine it is called DS monitor. And you see we have pulled in 530 events in the past hour, 24 hours. This is just our example. Lastly, I would like to just give you a quick overview of the code. Let me share the correct window for that. And so someone mentioned that they would like to be interested in doing this in Azure. So for example, you can use this code as a guide. It won't port directly over. This is Splunk specific code, but it's just basic Python, and it'll walk you through the exact steps you need to authenticate. None of this is like internal to DocuSign. It's all readily available things you can do. This particular plugin, so for example, it grabs those data fields we mentioned, and then just some Splunk housekeeping to secure the password. And then the first thing it does is it gets a cursor, or first it authenticates with DocuSign, so we get an access token. The next thing it does is it checks if it already has a cursor where it last left off, and then if not, it gets the initial one, which just is our API that you'll be able to access, and then saves that cursor to disk. And then the next time through, it'll get that existing cursor. And the cursor is just where we last left off on our event streaming, so that it's you only get a chunk at a time, so we don't overwhelm the system. And then this just keeps repeating, and then we keep updating the cursor. And if you'd like to see how these work, you can see this is the main one, assuming we already have a cursor. This just calls our DocuSign URL, which you could use in any integration with the access token we've been granted. And then it pulls the events out of the response and then just dumps them into Splunk via the SDK, which is this ew.write event method. This would be very similar in any integration that you're able to write yourself. And with that, please ask any questions in the Q&A or wait till the end, and I'll turn it back over to Abhijit to talk about the roadmap. Thank you.
Hey, so Brian, we have a couple of questions. The first one is, will integration with Azure and Azure Monitor be something on your product roadmap? So yes, we can definitely consider that. It depends on the number of customers who ask for that particular SIEM integration, that particular Azure Monitor integration, and we would consider that and put that on the roadmap. And the next question is the code integration we are seeing right now. Does it have to be written in Python? Brian, would you be able to take that up?
Sure. It absolutely does not have to be written in Python. We provide also a sample in C# of a basic integration to beta users in the same location as the Python one. The Python one's just for the ease of integrating with Splunk. It's probably the most friendly language to integrate with that with, but it could be any language that's capable of making web requests.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have any other questions, again, feel free to type that in the Q&A. We will be able to answer those as we go through the rest of the presentation. Let me share my screen back. And So Brian did cover this part. We do have our Splunk plugin, our Splunk modular input available. This is the box folder from where you would be able to download it. And it's quite easy. Using your user guide, within a matter of minutes, you should be able to get this enabled within your Splunk Enterprise instance. Brian, anything that you would want to add for this particular slide? I know you covered it as part of your demo itself.
No, yeah, I think it's covered, unless anyone has questions.
Okay. And the reason why we used Splunk Enterprise is majority of our customers are using Splunk Enterprise as their SIEM system. And therefore, we prioritize that ahead of any other SIEM. But other SIEMs would potentially follow. Again, integrating with any existing SIEM should be fairly easy because of the way the DocuSign Monitor APIs have been written. It should not take you a lot of time to integrate these APIs in order to get these events and alerts flowing to your existing SIEM system. It is something that is fairly straightforward. If you want to get more information on the DocuSign Monitor API itself, it's all available within our DocuSign Monitor user guide. It's publicly available. So if you search for it, you should be able to get it. We'll also share that at the end of the presentation too. So again, this is something that is currently available in beta, right? So we have 40 plus events. We have 3 pre-programmed alerts. We have all of this functionality, which includes our DocuSign Monitor API, which exposes the events and alerts, which productizes the underlying telemetry. We have the Splunk app that you can actually start using in order to get started, in order to consume these events and integrate them into your existing Splunk Enterprise SIEM. We have our DocuSign Monitor UI. It gives you information in terms of the alerts that are currently being triggered. We'll keep adding to that. So in addition to what exists currently in beta, there is a lot more that we are building over the course of the next few releases, right? We are just getting started. So besides the 40 plus events and the 3 pre-programmed alerts, we'll have a lot more events and alerts that we'll add to that list. We're also adding configurable dynamic dashboards for these events and alerts. And that's completely based on the feedback that we are getting from our customers, from our beta customers. In addition to that, the insights and recommendations that you get through these events and alerts, we want to make these insights actionable. And the way we would do that is by actually recommending actions that admins will need to take when they get an alert. So for example, if they get a multiple failed login alert, we would start recommending actions like, oh, inactivate this user account, or reset their password, or block their IP address. That way, admins don't have to necessarily think or search for, okay, where do I go to inactivate the user? Where do I go to reset their password? It's readily available to you right when you're getting that alert. Also, we are introducing machine learning and AI algorithms that will actually help us better forecast, better predict, better detect any anomalous, suspicious behaviors, and be able to report on that, be able to alert customer administrators to those suspicious, fishy behaviors. In addition to that, using machine learning and AI, we will be able to correlate events with actions. So that way we are able to provide you with better recommendations in terms of how to deal with a corresponding threat. That's all coming in Q3 of next year. In addition to that, again, to allude to some of the questions that we got, we would provide some of the out-of-box integrations. Currently, we are planning to do that with Tableau or Power BI. If other systems are more prevalently used, we are happy to prioritize those before Tableau or Power BI. But that's again something that we are looking for feedback through the beta program, right? So we are open to ideas in terms of what third-party integrations are more frequently used by our customers, and we are open to reprioritizing which third-party integrations take precedence over what we have currently planned. Any questions on what's coming? Again, it's quite an exciting set of features that we have planned out for DocuSign Monitor. A lot of it is already available through beta, but more is coming every subsequent release in the next few years. So DocuSign Monitor, as you saw through the demos that Brian showed, that Vinayak talked about, is not vaporware. You can actually play around with this product. It's already in beta. We have an ongoing beta program for DocuSign Monitor. You need to register for it. You can register for it using this QR code. You can also click on the link when you get the slides, and it will take you to a Google form where we need information in terms of your email address, the company that you work for, and other additional information. Once you register and we go through the evaluation, what we need from you is essentially an early access program NDA. And once the NDA is signed and we get the org ID and the integration key for your demo environment, we would be able to enable DocuSign Monitor in your demo environment. Most of the enablement work is actually on our side. We will do all the heavy lifting. And once DocuSign Monitor is enabled, you would be able to consume it through the APIs to integrate it with other third-party applications like Azure Monitor or Splunk or Power BI or Tableau. You can also consume the DocuSign Monitor UI, and you can also take advantage of the DocuSign Monitor Splunk integration, the Splunk modular input that we have built, in case you're already using Splunk Enterprise. So that's the advantage of the beta program. In addition to consuming and trying out the beta product itself, the other advantage that you get is you get to influence our product roadmap. We look forward to getting inputs, feedback from all of you in order to make this product a lot more richer, a lot more comprehensive. And we do that through the beta program. So you get to kind of prioritize what is important for your business, what is important for your business requirements, and ensure that that is included in our product roadmap. So that's another advantage of the beta program. And the other thing is, as we introduce more and more features, you will be the first ones to try it out. You will be the first ones aware of it. You'll be the first ones using it and making yourself SMEs in your organizations for DocuSign Monitor. So that's another advantage that you get by registering for the beta program. So again, I would highly recommend that. We already have about 45 customers registered, so there are only a few slots remaining. So do take advantage that we currently have those places. With that, I'll hand it over to Melissa. Melissa, I know you have a couple of questions that we want to ask from the customers, so I'll hand it over to you.
Sure, thank you so much, Abhi. So related to the beta trial, we have another poll that we would appreciate your participation in, and I'm going to go ahead and launch that now. And that will kind of help us get a sense for those last few remaining slots that are open. And with that, I believe that's the end of our presentation, correct, Abhi?
That's correct. I think you wanted to share some developer resources too.
We're going to go into the live Q&A actually. So
okay.
If anyone has questions that you would like to have answered live, this is the time. You can raise your hand so you can speak with us or submit questions through the Q&A window as you have been all along, and we'll start addressing those now while the poll is going on. So I'll turn it back over to you, Abhi, Vin, and Brian.
Hey, thanks, Melissa. So again, some of the questions that we get are around the list of events that we have. If you want, I can go back to the list of events that we are currently enabling in beta. As you see, these are across 3 main buckets. So like we talked about, it's a login and access abnormalities. So that's the first bucket. So events like multiple failed logins, instances where we see a user who has logged in from Seattle, but 2 hours later they logged in from North Korea. That's an event that will fall in that particular category. So there are numerous events that we are taking that cater to that particular bucket. And it's not just login, it's basically accessing any transaction, whether it is envelopes getting created, envelopes getting downloaded, envelopes that are accessed will fall in that bucket. So any questions on that specific category, any specific questions on that specific bucket, we are happy to answer that. In addition to that, the second bucket is the user or account level changes, right? So if you notice that, as Brian showed, if org admin roles are getting created, right? Now that is a role who has special privileges, special permissions, and you need to be aware, you need to be careful around who is creating those org admin roles and who is logging in as an administrator, right? So that way you are making sure that nobody is misusing your DocuSign environment, nobody is getting access to confidential agreements and contracts that you didn't want them to get access to. So that's, again, that is an event that will fall in that bucket. And if we notice that there are a large number of admins get created, we'll bubble it up to you so that you can pay special attention to that. Or if you notice that users are getting inactivated, now that could potentially again be a hacker who is trying to sabotage your instance, your environment. We'll again flag that through the login and access abnormalities, that bucket. The last bucket is data exfiltration. That is where if we see that a user who typically accessed only, say, a couple of envelopes, they went and accessed a whole bunch of envelopes. That could potentially be a disgruntled employee who is trying to get away with as much confidential information about your agreements or about your contracts before they leave the company, right? Or if we notice that a large number of envelopes got deleted, that could again be somebody on the inside who is trying to sabotage your data, sabotage your agreements. So there again, we will bring that to your attention, make you aware of that through the envelopes deleted, envelopes accessed, envelopes downloaded events. Okay, so we see it seems like we are getting a lot of questions. Brian, do you want to talk about them so that way the whole group can go through them?
Sure, yeah, I can give a rundown of some of the questions that were asked. The first one that came in was, can the same monitoring happen across multiple enterprise accounts? And the answer is yes. Actually, this is enabled at your organization level. So any accounts that roll up to your organization, you'll be able to monitor across them. And like in the Splunk demo, that would have manifested as several different account IDs emitting events. So that hopefully pretty straightforward. Another one is, can you set up thresholds for the alerting based on your different business requirements and risk appetite? And currently, Avi, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but currently the thresholds are fixed in our initial beta release, but that is definitely on our roadmap. That's something, yeah, hopefully available sooner.
Yeah, and I can talk more about that. We do realize that customers would have their own thresholds. When we say multiple failed logins is 6 or more, that's something that is a default value right now. We are adding capabilities by which customers would be able to customize these thresholds, define their own that are relevant to their business environment. but that's something that is currently on the roadmap, and we will make available in the subsequent releases.
Cool. And we also got, can it integrate with Azure and Azure Monitor? And I mentioned that we only provide a Splunk one out of the box, but you can follow the same pattern to integrate with any product that allows for custom scripted integrations. What else?
And the DocuSign Monitor API, again, we have excellent documentation within the user guide. So you should be able to fairly easily integrate it with any of your existing SIEM environments besides Splunk.
And another one was if we will provide built-in Azure and Azure Monitor on our roadmap. And I know you touched on Tableau and Power BI, but I don't know if you have any others that you're planning on, Abhi.
Right, and again, we have Tableau and Power BI on our roadmap. If there are SIEM systems like Azure Monitor that are more prevalent, that more of our customers essentially request, we're happy to prioritize that ahead of what we have on the roadmap. But currently, all we can say is, yes, it is on the roadmap. It is something that we will eventually get to. But right now, it has been only Splunk Enterprise that we have productized.
Great. And another question, any plans to integrate a light version of monitoring into org admin? And just to clarify, what Abhi demoed initially was actually in org admin. But that is, our initial pass was just alerting in there, and we'll soon upgrade it to have events and alerting and a lot more functionality. But that was in org admin.
Yes, that was the org admin. And then there was a question on what is the beta program, and is that specifically for the Splunk integration?
Right.
So the beta program is for the entire DocuSign Monitor product. So when we talk about the DocuSign Monitor product, it has three mechanisms. The first one is, of course, the DocuSign Monitor API, which our customers have been using to get to the underlying telemetry events and alerts. We also have the DocuSign Monitor UI, which is embedded within the DocuSign org admin console. And then we have the Splunk app, the Splunk modular input, and that's part of the Splunk Enterprise. We provide that Splunk app to our customers so that they can get started with their Splunk integration. Right, so it's currently something that provides out-of-box dashboards for a sample of the events that we are exposing through DocuSign Monitor. So it's for the beta program is actually for all the three mechanisms. So you get the UI, you get the APIs, you get the Splunk modular input, the Splunk plugin also as part of that.
Hey, Abhi and Brian, could we jump in? I believe we had a raised hand from Amar Kumar, and I've unmuted him. So,
Sure.
Amar, did you have a question for us?
Yeah, well, I'm basically from the UK. We just basically went into your solution. We actually purchased into it, and we're finding it very useful. And we're forwarding it on to our other departments like witness statements, etc. At the moment, I'm working on a project where we want to integrate it with our Jagger system. Jagger system is otherwise known as Bravo. So I'm wondering, how do you actually go about doing that? Because what I've seen on the solution at the moment, the API, it shouldn't be very difficult. And I've spoken to Cormac, I believe he's our business executive from your side, and he doesn't have too much knowledge about it, but he's put me onto this webinar, which I'm finding quite useful. And I'm wondering, how can I go about getting more information about that?
Sure. And Brian, do jump in. Vinayak, do jump in if you can add. But let me actually share with you the documentation, right? And it would be probably beneficial to other participants too. So Brian referred to it briefly as part of his demo. But I wanted to make sure that you are able to see all the information that we are currently sharing through the user guide.
Okay, yep.
So this is the user guide. It's currently available in the DocuSign support site. So if you go and search there, you should be able to get to the DocuSign Monitor user guide. And what we offer here is essentially information about the DocuSign Monitor, about the beta program, what are the different use cases that we are enabling, how you can integrate with a SIEM system, how you configure DocuSign Monitor, how to use the DocuSign Monitor UI, the dashboard itself, and the API, right? So to your question, if you go to this particular section, you should be able to get information in terms of what needs to happen in terms of the API authentication, the JWT token, what are the different events that we are enabling, right? What is the signature of the DocuSign Monitor API. You also get information in terms of all the objects, all the entities that we are exposing, all the events that we are exposing right here.
Okay.
So, and again, if you register for the beta program, we would be able to again give you a much better guidance. We can help you through some of these integration questions too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So again, in addition to the API, we also, as Brian mentioned, provide documentation for how to integrate it with a SIEM system. Like we have taken an example of Splunk. So this is something that Brian again briefly shared as part of his demo. So this is something that, based on like you mentioned Jagger and some other tool, you can follow this pattern, right? Whatever we have built for Splunk should be fairly similar for any of the other third-party applications, right? We have made this code available. It's on the box folder here, so feel free to download that, and you should be able to replicate some of the same logic for any of your other third-party application integrations. Okay, any other questions, Melissa? Okay, there was one.
Looks like we have one more in from Sam in the Q&A chat. Will this webinar be available online to view for those who could not attend today? And the answer is we will be sending the presentation to you, a PDF of the presentation along with the recording of the webinar following this about a week after.
Perfect. So again, one call to action that we have is again, go through the user guide. I'm sure you will find a lot of information there that would be useful for you. If you are interested in playing around with the DocuSign Monitor product, we recommend that you participate in the beta program. That will give you an opportunity to try out the DocuSign Monitor product, and at the same time give us feedback that will help us make the product better.
Okay, that just about does it for our time for questions. We're sending, oh, we already took care of that. For those of you whose questions we haven't addressed, or if you want to have them addressed later, you can email your questions to apiwebinar@docusign.com, and this team will follow up with you after today's webinar. You can also join us for our next API office hours on May 20th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. or you can post questions on Stack Overflow and tag them with DocuSign API for a community response. Lastly, it's not too late to sign up for our final Momentum Developer webinars, Series Session 3, creating embedded signing workflows, May 13th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. To register, watch for the follow-up email I just mentioned with the registration link following today's webinar. Please note, as I said earlier, you will receive a survey at the end of the webinar. We'd appreciate your help sharing feedback and suggestions on topics you would like us to cover in our biweekly API office hour sessions for future webinars. I would also like to thank our panel, Abhi, Vin, and Brian, for being on the call today and all their help. And thank you to all of you, our attendees, for joining us. Have a great remainder of the day, everyone.